Beloveds, if you can, for a moment, take a breath with me. I can't breathe. Just three words that may not mean much when divided, but when put together, they can be the line between life and death. I grew up as a child of the 80s in Southern California when gas was less than $1. My mother drove a Ford LTD, and my grandmother ran the neighborhood beauty salon working with chemicals that I'm sure had no business being put on anyone's head. It was a time when crack was the new street drug and AIDS was considered a form of cancer. It was a time when you could see the morning air and literally cut it with a knife because the smog layer was that thick. Who remembers how bad the air quality was back then? Anybody? I remember the 80s so well because I couldn't breathe for much of it. I remember being a child and having terrible asthma. I had 2 to 3 inhalers to use at a time. And I'm pretty sure that I had used over 10 different kinds of inhalers by the time I turned 10 years old. Yet I survived those times. But the memories of the agonizing nights, waking up coughing because I couldn't breathe, and then sitting up with my mother with her warm hands rubbing my back as she tried to get me to drink hot coffee to help open my airways. I also remember the nights when the coffee didn't work and being taken to the emergency room for breathing treatments and sitting there holding my mother's hands while she prayed for me to be able to get the air in my lungs. Can you imagine for a moment what it feels like to know that your environment is trying to take you out? In the Inland Valley, we knew that the air quality was bad. And most of the air wasn't ours. It had been blown in from the coastal regions and from the high desert and got hung at the bottom of the valley. For some, an easy answer at the time would have been to move away. But how do you move when you don't have enough money? How do you move when you have lived close to your immediate family so that they can help you take care of your kids? How do you move? It's safer to stay near the devil you know than it is to move to a place where you don't know anyone. As I grew up, I remember getting up in the mornings and looking out the window to a smoggy day. The brown clouds that would move into our area and then just hang there. And as I became a teenager, those same smoggy days seemed to happen less and less, and my asthma eventually went away. That smoggy threat was gone and had been gone for a really long time. But now in my local community, we are starting to have to fight that fight again for this new generation. We are fighting because here in Southern California, Amazon is building warehouses faster than McDonald's and Starbucks can take a corner. As a youth, I didn't always understand the magnitude of the life lessons my mother tried to teach me. She gave me wisdom that helped me then, and it continues to help me today. It helps me in ways that I never knew I would need them to. She would say, make sure you always have some coffee on hand. They say you grow out of that asthma, but you never know. She said, always have some beans, potatoes, and rice. You can always make a meal out of that. She would say, Anything that can be solved with a conversation. You don't have to yell and get all up in someone's face to get your point across. She would always say, know your surroundings. You must know multiple ways to get home. And lastly, she would say, if you are walking home from school or if you are driving and get pulled over by the police, remember, it's yes, sir, and no, sir. Don't make any fast movements. Your mission is to make it home. Who would have thought that last lesson would end up being one of the most important lessons I ever learned? I was barely becoming a teenager when the video of Rodney King being beaten was broadcast on national television. I did not fully understand at the time what it meant to see a man pulled out of his car and then beaten without mercy, beaten without regard for the video camera that was being pointed at the officers. The sad thing is, who knows what the story would have been if that video footage never existed? For most of my adult life, I was able to grow up knowing the story of Rodney King, but never having to think about it because I wouldn't be in that situation. I had kept my head in the books and had been on the straight and narrow, gone to college and achieved a degree. But that all started to change in 2012. In 2012, Trayvon Martin, a young black kid, was walking home from the corner store with Skittles in his pocket when he was attacked by a vigilante who thought he didn't belong in his own neighborhood. I thought that maybe this was a one-off. This was an accident. An overzealous person wanting to be a part of the action had reacted too fast, and the cost was Trayvon. The violence did not stop, and instead it escalated and was perpetrated by the very people who are supposed to protect and serve. Then in 2014, Garner happened. He was in his community at his local shop, allegedly on his side hustle, trying to make a few extra dollars selling loosies or loose cigarettes, and he lost his life. Again, I ask you, can you imagine for a moment what it feels like to know that your environment is trying to take you out? In that moment, losing Garner, I heard the phrase that I had told my own mother as a child: I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe because Black and brown folks are still victims of state-sanctioned violence. I can't breathe because right now in America, if you look like me, your existence could mean a death sentence. I can't breathe when my skin tone, my tone of voice, my assumed demeanor can be the thing that turns a calm situation into a crime scene. I can't breathe when my skin can be considered a weapon. I can't breathe because we are taught to let the system do the work and that justice prevails for the innocent. And at the same time, I have seen what happened to the Central Park Five. I saw what happened to Philando Castile on Facebook Live. I can't breathe because walking in a non-BIPOC room or a UU church means that I can hopefully be the cure for the lack of diversity, when in reality, the question that should be asked is, why is there a lack of diversity in the first place? I'm gonna say that last one again. I can't breathe because walking in a non-BIPOC room or a UU church means that I can hopefully be the cure for the lack of diversity, when in reality, the question that should be asked is, why is there a lack of diversity in the first place? I can't breathe because I have been taught that being a good, exemplary type of Black makes me better or more palatable than those folks who don't have a college education. I can't breathe because people don't see the problem with telling an educated person of color, "You speak so well." I can't breathe because mentioning the words white supremacy causes the whole world to shut down. I can't breathe because right now we are in the midst of a pandemic and the illness is impacting our lungs. I can't breathe because as a society, we are more invested in the medicines than in the cure. I can't breathe because we would rather make America great again than make it safe again or well again or feel human again. I can't breathe because Eric Garner couldn't. I can't breathe because George Floyd couldn't. I can't breathe because I don't know who's going to be next. How about you? Who we listen to is who we become. So I ask, who are you listening to? My story today is just one story out of many. We have the opportunity at this moment to change. We have the opportunity to tell the truth about the systems that are broken. We have the opportunity to reevaluate what does not work and make something better. But are we willing to? Are you willing to? You don't have to have all of the answers today. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm just asking that you deeply listen so that you can understand the message beyond the words shared today. Thank you for listening, and blessed be.